Customers were making fun of the old grocery bagger. How can he be this slow, they complained. Walter Johnson just smiled and apologized, continuing to carefully place items in bags. But none of them knew that his hands had defused over 300 bombs in Iraq, and none of them suspected that in 45 minutes what happened in that store would reveal Walt's past in the most shocking way possible. Welcome to Inspiring Human Stories. Before I tell you this story, write in the comments which city you're watching from, and if you believe real heroes' stories should be told, subscribe. Because the story I'm about to tell will keep you glued to your screen from start to finish, and by the end, you'll never judge anyone by their appearance again. Walt's morning routine was always the same. At 6:45 a.m., he'd get in his old Honda and drive to Miller's grocery store. But customers had never seen what he kept in his car's trunk, and if they had, they would have understood who that old man really was. But the most shocking event hadn't happened yet. Walt was the store's slowest employee. He examined every package, carefully placed every item. Customers got impatient, complained. "How slow can this old man be?" grumbled the woman in line. But the woman didn't know that Walt's careful movements had saved 1,200 soldiers' lives in Iraq, and those careful glances would help him notice the suspicious man entering the store right now. Because in 20 minutes, that man would leave something very dangerous behind, and Walt would have to save lives again. At 10:30 a.m., cashier Lisa asked Walt an interesting question. "Walt, why do you do everything so carefully, like it's a matter of life and death?" Walt paused. If Lisa knew the truth, if she knew Walt's past. But Walt said nothing. "Habit," he said simply. But there was something Lisa couldn't get out of her mind. Walt's hands. Those weren't the hands of a normal store employee. Too many scars, too many marks, like he'd done very dangerous work. And soon, she would see the true power of those hands, because her life would be in danger. During lunch hours, the store got crowded. Walt was working carefully as usual, but he noticed something. The young man coming to register 3 was acting strangely. Nervousness, sweaty hands, constantly checking his watch, and that big backpack. Alarm bells started ringing in Walt's blood because he'd seen this pattern before, in Iraq, in very dangerous situations, but the most shocking thing hadn't happened yet. The young man came to the register, bought a few things, paid hastily. His phone rang. "Hello? Yes, I'm here. Everything will be ready in 10 minutes. Walt froze. This phone conversation sounded very familiar, and when the man left his bag by the register as he rushed out, Walt's worst fear came true, because that bag wasn't just an ordinary bag. Lisa noticed the bag. "Sir, you forgot your bag." But the man ran out without looking back. Walt slowly approached the bag. He put his ear to it, and the sound he heard activated his 23 years of experience. Tick-tock, tick-tock. "Lisa," Walt's voice was serious and cold. "Don't touch that bag." "Why?" "Just don't touch it and get everyone out of here." But Lisa didn't know who Walt was yet. She hadn't learned that he was Staff Sergeant Walter Johnson, an explosive ordnance disposal specialist, and she didn't know what Walt saw in that bag yet. Flashback, Iraq 2004. Memories flashed in Walt's mind. Route Tampa, dawn, the voice on the radio, "Sergeant Johnson, emergency, suspicious package at Checkpoint Alpha." Walt put on his heavy EOD uniform, 60 kilos, suffocating in the desert heat. But Walt's hand wasn't shaking, his heart wasn't racing, because he was an expert. The suspicious package was an ordinary cardboard box. But Walt knew the most ordinary-looking things were the most deadly. As he approached the package, he heard the same sound, tick-tock, tick-tock. Digital timer, 5 minutes left. Walt used the X-ray device. What he saw inside shocked him. Professional bomb, military-grade explosive, powerful enough to destroy everything in a 50-meter radius. "Base, we have a very serious situation here. This is not amateur work." 4 minutes, 30 seconds. Walt examined the wire pattern. Red, blue, yellow, black. But there was a trap, decoy wires. Cut the wrong wire and it explodes immediately. 3 minutes, 45 seconds. Walt's hands weren't trembling, because at that moment, the lives of 25 soldiers waiting in the convoy 30 meters away were in his hands. 2 minutes 20 seconds. Walt made his decision. He cut the blue wire. The timer stopped. 25 soldiers lived. Now, store. Walt opened his eyes. He returned to the present, but the bag in his hand took him back to that day. "Walt, what's happening?" Lisa was worried. "Lisa, call security, right now, and evacuate the store." "What? Why?" Walt looked at the bag. Same shape, same weight, and the same sound. "Because this is a bomb." Lisa's face went white. "You're joking, right?" "I dealt with these things for 23 years. I'm not joking." And at that moment, Lisa understood who Walt was. But she hadn't seen the most shocking part yet. Security guard Gary came running. "What's happening?" "This bag is a bomb. Evacuate the store, now." Gary hesitated. "Are you sure?" Walt looked at him, and Gary was shocked by what he saw in Walt's eyes. Those eyes had seen a lot. They were war-hardened eyes. "Evacuate, now." The announcement was made. "Customers, please leave the store for security reasons." People started rushing out in panic, but Walt stayed. "Walt, you get out too," Gary shouted. "No, this is my job." And at that moment, everyone would learn who Walt really was. Walt approached the bag. He checked the timer. 8 minutes, 45 seconds left. But the bomb squad wouldn't arrive for 20 minutes. Walt had to handle it alone. When he opened the bag, what he saw surprised even him. Professional bomb, C4 plastic explosive, digital timer, cellular trigger, and decoy wires. This wasn't amateur work. This was military-grade explosive. 7 minutes, 15 seconds. Walt thought of his old equipment, but he had nothing. Only basic tools he could find in the store's maintenance room. He ran to the maintenance room. Wire cutters, multimeter, screwdriver, primitive tools, but they might work. When he returned, the timer showed 5 minutes, 30 seconds. Walt examined the bomb. There were 2 trigger systems, timer and cellular. If one failed, the other would activate. He had to neutralize the cellular first. He took out the phone, put it under the metal register. Signal blocked. 4 minutes, 45 seconds. Now the timer. But this wouldn't be easy. The wire pattern was complex. Red, blue, yellow, green, black. And each was connected to a different function. Walt began analyzing the pattern. He remembered his experiences in Iraq. In this type of bomb, usually the yellow wire was the timer. But there were decoy wires. 3 minutes, 20 seconds. Walt used the multimeter. He measured electrical currents. There was current in the yellow wire. It was the timer wire. But there was a problem. If you cut the yellow wire, the backup trigger might activate. 2 minutes, 55 seconds. In the following days, Walt's life completely changed. He was no longer just a grocery bagger. While doing rounds in the store, Walt noticed various safety issues. "Janet, we need to fix the chemical storage." "Why?" "If these chemicals sit side by side, they can emit toxic gas." Janet now completely trusted Walt's expertise. "Let's fix it immediately." A week later, there was a gas leak emergency, but Walt had taken precautions beforehand. No one was harmed. The fire chief came to Walt. "Sir, the precautions were perfect. How could you have known?" "Experience," Walt simply said. But the real transformation hadn't come yet. Walt began doing not only security, but also mentorship. He was teaching and preparing young employees. 19-year-old Tommy asked, "Walt, you're a real hero. How did you become so brave?" Walt thought, "Tommy, courage isn't about doing big things. Courage is about doing the right thing, every day, every moment. I want to be like you too." "Tommy, you're already brave. You just didn't realize it." 6 months later, Walt's story became a book, Defusing Life, From Baghdad to Main Street. But Walt donated the proceeds to veteran organizations. "I didn't do it for publicity," Walt said. "I just did the right thing." And the most surprising development happened a year later. A general from the Pentagon called Walt. "Sergeant Johnson, we want to talk to you. Instructor position for the EOD training program." Walt was surprised. "Sir, I'm retired." "Johnson, your expertise is very valuable. You can teach young soldiers." Walt thought, "Can it be part-time? I don't want to leave my job at the store." "Of course." And so Walt became both a grocery store security director and a Pentagon EOD instructor. Every week, he taught bomb disposal to young soldiers. But the most important lesson was this: soldiers, EOD isn't just a technical skill. EOD is life protection. You're not defusing bombs, you're saving lives. One day, a young soldier asked, "Sergeant, were you ever afraid?" Walt thought, "I was always afraid, but what I feared wasn't death. What I feared was failure. Not being able to protect others. How do you feel now?" Walt looked from the training facility to the grocery store. "Now I feel that the mission never ends, only the battlefield changes." 2 years later, Walt's grocery store became a national model for security. Other stores began using Walt's protocols. And Walt realized that his biggest impact wasn't in the military, but in civilian life. "Lisa," Walt said one day, "I noticed something interesting." "What?" "In Iraq, I defused 300 bombs. I saved 1,200 lives. But here, every day, with routine safety measures, I'm protecting thousands of people." Lisa smiled. "So the biggest heroism is everyday heroism." Exactly. And Walt understood that real heroism isn't spectacular moments. Real heroism is consistent care, daily attention, endless protection. Every morning, Walt continued coming with the same routine. But he was no longer just a grocery bagger. He was a protector, a guardian, a teacher, and most importantly, he was an inspiring example. He showed that heroism doesn't retire, it just changes form. Because Walt had learned that the life protection mission never ends. From Baghdad to Main Street, from bomb disposal to grocery safety, it's possible to protect people everywhere. And sometimes, the most powerful impact is made in the most ordinary places. Welcome to Inspiring Human Stories. If this story touched you, subscribe and share. We don't know how many Walts are around us, people who quietly do their duties, carefully protecting life. Now I ask you, have you ever encountered someone you thought was ordinary, but had an extraordinary past? Share in the comments, because sometimes the greatest heroes work in the most ordinary jobs, but they still save lives every day, every moment, with every careful movement. And remember, heroism isn't about big dramatic gestures. Heroism is about caring enough to pay attention every single day.